as it was last night, we went to Salem. And this isn't quite masterpiece theater, but nonetheless, we're going to try it anyway. Nothing more menacing than a history professor. Yes, yes. Makes me wish for a crack pipe. I know where to find those. Usually on the streets here in London. You know, you get bored of just making paintings all the time, drawings, playing around with an instrument. You know, creative people got to change it up, right? You got to do something different. So here I am. This is me as a professor. I do a pretty good job at it. I know I would. I learned from some of the very best. You know, Trent University and Fanshawe. Isn't that right, Zoe? Yeah. Okay, so earlier today we're doing the Boston special, and then also talking about blood sacrifices, and of course the living handbook of, or say the book of living religions, and how there's even philosophy behind the horrors of transgenderism and transtrenderism. They just get, because when you take away a belief system, there's a vacuum, and we replace it with something else, because we all need some sort of community and something that creates a connection that vis-a-vis we would call spirituality. But other people have different ideas as to what that's supposed to be, and what we have to do for rituals, rites, and traditions in order to be part of that faith, which is completely ridiculous. Now, Marquis de Sade's Justine. This is, of course, based off of the book by the duo. We're going into, so this has to do with like sadomasochism and sexual depravity, so orgies, then sodomy, and all of that stuff, you know, that I'm very dismissive of, quite rightfully so. It just rubs me the wrong way. Yeah. Yeah. So, again, the character, the history professor from, was it the City of the Dead, was a resident of that town, right? And I showed you earlier that, well, I have proof of having gone to Salem myself. You know, gone to Plymouth Rock. I've been to Philadelphia. I touched the bell. I swear to God. I don't remember if we went up the stairs at the Philadelphia Art Museum or not, but we still had a hoagie and a down togie, okay? The city of brotherly love. And there's also that connotation with the Tom Hanks movie, of course, Philadelphia, which, if I remember, has something to do with AIDS and the legal battle that happened afterwards because of the AIDS or the HIV vaccine and the treatment through the lack of treatment, or you know, this very bad treatment because they didn't understand, or this conspiracy theory is that AIDS was put out there or HIV was put out there to reduce the gay population. I'm not really sure about that. I don't know that holds any water. You know, I wouldn't want to ship that. I wouldn't want to ship that. I wouldn't want to be in that kind of romance. Yeah. Hey, you gotta perform. You gotta produce if you want the meat, right? You want the meat off the bone. You gotta produce. So, intellectual property. This here, you know, of course, there's eminent domain. If I'm going to comment on this like a lawyer, there's also a limitation as to well, when it becomes public domain, right? We're talking about, and then the internet, post-internet epoch. Since I'm talking about lawyers, lawyers used to be aristocrats. Okay, so if you had a problem, you would go up to your lord, you go to your duke or whatever else within your little principality or whatever it was. And then they would decide instead of the king, because the king's too freaking busy trying to make babies. That's what he does. And then when the king can't make babies anymore, then the prince takes over. What more do you want? Like, this is not a secret. It's not a secret. Let's see. So going forward with this, you know, that again, I don't want to correlate making babies to the negative aspects of sexuality within contemporary culture, or within secular culture as, you know, us, not me, I don't include myself in with the hardcore right-wing ultra conservative you know, Christians, or the ultra far left, you know, again, because there's no matter what, you end up, we end up tying the ends in the circle as the snake eats its own tail, right? The cycle of balance that is justice, and return to some kind of, I don't know, reasonability. And this is unreasonable. This is totally unreasonable. I would not personally go on any kind of escapade like this. I surely hope not. You know, cross my fingers on this one, unless somebody drugs me. Then that's a completely different story. Okay, so what else? What else? Well, okay, so obviously shout out to Mystery Theater 3000 for some inspiration, and also it's a creature feature. You know, you're doing the setting thing before you start the movie, or whatever else. That's really good. It's a good bit. It's a good bit. Good setup. But you know, I'm obviously going to take a lot more serious tone on this because of the propaganda that follows stuff like this. Even this film itself is a piece of propaganda, fear tactics, and the control of the narrative was a lot easier before the internet. And in order to have any kind of knowledge, you had to go through the academic system and through academics and be peer reviewed, and that was the only way that you could get published. Right before cancel culture, before you know 1999, and you had the birth of the internet from the 1970s onwards, and as it was started, it was only supposed to be between universities, and then, you know, Facebook followed the same same pattern. And at first it was only for the universities, or only for the institutions of the government, and then from there on, it exploded after opening up, because the profiteers wanted it, and they said, oh, we see potential to make lots of money on this, lots of money, lots of, and then all of a sudden it turns to shit. Okay, so I'm not going to do the Orson Welles right now, because that was a good bit last night with the City of the Dead. I'm going to sit through this, or probably lie down in my Sunday best. But that's not really it, because I've worn these pants in the hanger. I really don't care, right? I really don't care. I don't have time, really, or reason to dress up so much anymore, unless it's something like this, or it's for a woman. Just saying, you know, if she's going to put work in, I'm going to put work in. It's only fair. Okay, we'll see you at the end of this movie.
This is the story of Justine and the misfortunes of virtue.
I lied. Just eating my bread and butter here. You guys ever had shawarma before? I have. pretty good. You want to try it? I know a place down the street. Okay, I lied. I want to say something about this scene.
Must it be true that prosperity attends the very worst of conduct? Must it always be that disaster dogs the heels of virtue?
Just a second, I'm trying to get some more light off the screen here. There we go. Oh, come on. There we go. All right, that's going to work well. Why does, what's it, this, prosperity dogging the heels of virtue, or say with prosperity? You see, it's the virtuous of us that believe, really, the position of righteousness. And this, you know, because this movie has to do with hedonism in an era in which brothels were common. And, well, it's the world's oldest trade, you know, if I'm going to comment about, you know, legalizing prostitution, because frankly, the alternative isn't very good. You know, you don't, the obligation is upon the workers themselves, the whores, frankly, to do STI testing. And, you know, it's not like they have good access to housing or whatever else, because they're just turning tricks on the street, and they get involved with drugs, and they end up homeless, and then they end up dead. Excuse me. That's not really a world I want to live in. I'd rather, you know, and it's a slippery slope to include, but you know, the Dutch figured it out a long time ago in Scandinavia. You know, like even though I don't necessarily agree with how they run their prisons and stuff like that. You know, not that I'm saying that the two are the same, but we create our own prisons with our ideologies and our theologies and our propaganda, trying to support our ethnic groups, right? And again, it's just one of those dichotomies and one of those tropes of the John and the whore, and the John falls in, or say the whore falls in love with the John, or vice versa, and the power dynamics that happen between the two in the absence of any kind of face structure that is implicit to the exchange. Are we doing this for godly reasons, or are we doing this for carnal reasons, like lust, or just to fulfill, you know, a moment in time, a fleeting pursuit of momentary pleasure? And then again, that you can torture people with pleasure, and that's where you get into this even deeper depravity, because it's a slippery slope, right? As it gets scientific here for a second, this historian's getting scientific. Oh my goodness! Whoa. Oh, my Lanta. Yeah. Anyway, so it's the same thing with drugs. The drugs, you know, the different crime families. See, the Italians and the Irish ruling the port in Montreal, and all the crazy stuff comes from Europe, like the MDMA, the ecstasy, and Cornish acid. You know, or amphetamines. The opioids come from the Far East, which is, of course, the pre-colonialist racist terminology for Asia. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you describe my people in this way? If you go to other countries, people make a sport out of being racist. Okay, that's the way it used to be. And then all this other censorship and this language control and this propaganda, this fucking bullshit. You know, in order again to install a new aristocracy, which started, you know, more than 50 or 60 years ago. This has all been going on and exacerbated masturbatory and self-flagellation and mutual. You know, I made this joke in the psych ward. You know, a mutual masturbation. Again, I made numerous masturbation jokes over my life because, you know, fuck. I'm a master debater. I have the right ideas and the concepts of the philosophy, and that not only complements theology and religion, but is the basis of the culture itself. Because if we don't think about what we're doing, and then we suffer the consequences, right? Stick to the script. You don't always improvise, because it's not always going to be in this. It's, you know, especially if it's a coordinated effort, it's not always going to turn out well when you turn coat on the script, so to speak. So like this is very early in the film. It's only about 15 minutes, and you know, the programming. Then I'm talking about the script here. The program, right, used to be, or the programming used to be that the TV stations, you know, they would put people into a routine which was productive and allowed us as a society to maintain order over the most violent of us. And that isn't so much the case anymore because of distributed networks of intelligence. And so instead of central, decentralized intelligence. And that's why London Falling is so scary, because there's a great possibility of that happening even right here in London, Ontario, because of the concentration of wealth and because of the number of newcomers here and the pre-established conservative Christian dominance of the area. And so you have all these new players coming into this gangster's paradise that is London, Ontario in 2024, because there is a power vacuum and there's a few central figures, just like a Shakespearean play, right, that are ready to retire or don't know when to retire and need to be knocked off because they have too much concentration of power as a private individual, and they're getting in the way of the next generation of prospering. And this is the masochism. This is the sadism. You know, trying torturing other people for your own pleasure, even though you think that you're doing something virtuous. You know, trying to explain away all of these actions because you go back to the church and you confess your sins, or you go to the rabbi, or you go to the sheikh, to the Muzzy leader, saying, "Oh, I confess all my sins. Please forgive me." And then you rationalize away, "Oh, this is God's plan," and so on and so forth. Those people are not trustworthy. They're not trustworthy. And as much as God works in strange and mysterious ways, when we're not participants in our community and employing our faith, then it doesn't make a fucking difference. As you can see, I've changed positions. I'm now taking this lying down. Maybe a bit of boudoir photography, like I did on Instagram. Maybe with a little bit less than my black shorts. Oh man. Or I have no idea how many people saw that thing where I was mocking the porn through the mass. You know, because I'm on Instagram, it's really pervasive, and how I was calling it the meat market, because not only do you meet the meat on the market, you're meeting with the meat. So you're meeting at the meat for the drag show. Marvelous. Instagram was really bad. I would say it's like a gay containment board, you know. That's where, because it's so shiny, right? And it was so original. And all the first adopters were performers or people that loved Polaroids, and Polaroids were previously used and are still used by smart individuals to take naughty photos. Because you know, obviously it can't be downloaded or it can't be uploaded from someone's computer. Especially in instances where a hacker or a nosy person is, especially really important people and really rich people, they want to vet sources, rightfully so. They want to vet the people that they're going to bring into their lives, rightfully so, with private investigators. And this is why Epstein and other military people are considered to be trustworthy, is because everything's out in the open. The behavior of the person is well known and established, you know. But then you go to freaking Epstein Party Island, and then some things get a little too saucy, and the degeneracy goes overboard, and then you start performing blood sacrifices. It's just fucking weird. Or you just did these mock sacrifices and these stuff that is put out as false information to screw with the public at large, because, you know, this is what some rich people do, is the not necessarily the Maleficent billionaires, because, you know, Hoover Institute just put up this thing today about, while I'm watching this, about you know, omnipotent billionaires, if there is such a thing, you know, because money is the root of all evil, and absolute power corrupts, absolutely. And this scene here, I got more than, I'm like 58 minutes into this movie, and they're talking about well, the situation is that the man doesn't have the assets, and the assets are in the name and possession of the common law of the woman, and she has the means of power. And so what the man does is that he uses a whore that he since he's of a high position and of a regent worthy status, so like a duke, duchess, a lord, right, a knight. Even a knight has precedent over citizens, and other officiates, notaries even, which are still exist within our society and still have weight, you know, because of the need to vet people and to verify who they are and their behavior. So you're not hiring degenerates, and you're not hiring people that would exploit you and steal from you. But again, the position for which the exploitation of the power is what put Justine into being a servant, right? She's not a public servant. She's a private servant under the umbrella of this Marquis, right? And the Marquis being a French officiate, a person that is of the gentry, of the aristocracy, the old aristocracy. Not the new one, not the new aristocracy that just wants everything to be gay. Oh, goodness gracious! It's just like, oh, this new religion, the new religion of hedonism, yeah, and the Saturn worship. It's fucking bullshit.
Every night, prepare himself to jump. Seize her! Seize her! Seize her!
Oh, yeah.
True. And the subject that we are studying is nothing less than...
Where you at?
The pursuit of pleasure.
Yeah. En plaisir. En plaisir. En plaisir. Yeah.
Desire? Cruelty amaze you?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What you shared is not
Un plaisir.
necessarily a pleasure. At least, better, we concentrate on our own soul. This flatters our pride the more.
That's what you look like.
Justine, I should make some.
Raymond? I love you.
Oh, there's the murderer.
A friend of mine has arrived with a young lady.
I'm not saying Randy's a murderer.
To look after her.
You were very quick, man. She's my partner. Follow me.
It would be funny if, like, but if that played out in South Park, if Randy ended up having to kill someone, you know, and make them into fish food, and then does a reverse Cartman. I don't know. It's a possibility.
Oh, my dear. How good it is to see you again. That will be all. You will leave her to me. I will take her to my house.
Yes, ma'am.
So here we are, huh? Let go of me. And you are not without your own kind of corruption, are you, you innocent little thief? Now you will come with me. Yes, you will come with me. Oh, my God. Your God. What God? Evil exists in the earth. Since there's evil, it must be that God needs it, or he is too weak to prevent it. I am not impressed with your God. Huh? You can't be.
Well, that's our little friend again. Hello, my dear.
Marvelous. 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 Yes, very good. Very good. Very good. Very good.
I love. Juliet. My poor child. All of what you have told me has happened to you. Whilst I, indulging in every kind of wickedness, have enjoyed nothing but pleasure. Until here I am today, mistress of a wealthy nobleman, a minister of the king, with my own house in Paris, estates in the country, and 2 million crowns in the bank. I've learned from my own experiences in this world that it's only the wicked who prosper. And I think that if I'm allowed to live, I intend to change my ways. No, sister. If that's the conclusion you have reached, you're wrong. My wicked life has proven empty. You have suffered a great deal, but in the end you will be rewarded. You will accompany us to our house in the country, where peace and happiness await you. Happiness? You poor child.
For indeed, true happiness can only be found in the practice of virtue. And if God permits the righteous to be persecuted on earth, it is only to prepare them for a great reward in heaven.
Oh, there's Little Red Riding Hood. Blue, of course, is French nobility. Okay, so that was Marquis de Sade's Justine from 1969. 69 is fine, and you know, we all know that was the summer of love, baby. I can hear friggin', what's it? Down on the Bayou, Born in the Jungle, just chiming in my head right now. Born in the jungle, do 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 do. I'm born in the jungle, do 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 do. You imagine seeing that in Vietnam, you know, and then you got to go kill someone, and you don't know how. You know, you're just shooting at the dark until it bleeds daylight. Holy shit! Holy shit! You know, the subject material, again, it has to do with sexual exploitation. So it's heavy, right? But you know, it's a bit removed. So, and it's quite sanitized, to be honest with you, because obviously the standards of the culture at the time with the censors, right? And yes, I am doing a bit of the censor here in in my Sunday best, basically from the waist up, and then my Saturday party bottoms. No. I am not a bottom. I've already been through this, okay? I'm not gay. Not interested? Not even one bit. Please don't. I'd rather you didn't. But going forward from this, you know, it's like, it's painful, you know, because obviously I've been through you know, sexual assault. And I've gotten off easy in comparison to other people where, you know, for me, it's like unwanted touching in certain areas of my body. But other people experience sexual slavery, and so quite frankly, you know, it's not like I'm trying to compare or to pump up my traumas and, you know, my near-death experiences, because I have had near-death experiences. I've been forced into these positions by people that wish to continue in their place of power and are willing to murder and enslave in order to sit on their nice and comfy you know, secret lab chairs. Quite frankly, you know, I almost bought one of those. I really did, but you know, we can't run from accountability anymore, and that's why it's so important to cross-examine, you know, like a lawyer and as a historian. You know, again, going back to see what influenced my parents' generation, because, well, everything is a continuation, if not a reaction, to previous cultural movements. So in the 60s, you know, this was right after, you know, it was a real blossoming of abstract art because of, well, and of, you know, of course, the psychedelics and the whole free love thing, and but one rule for the rich people and another for the others, whereas, you know, the aristocracy, again, this has to do with military tradition, would buy their children's way out of the Vietnam War, and you know, but you know, and then the Harvard, Junior, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's freaking woodpeckers drilling at termites. You know, that are where can I say? Where am I going with this? Yeah. Anyways, because a lot of the stuff that in that era was wood, so termites was a real problem. That's a reference to Lawnmower Man yesterday, in which, you know, the priest is extinguishing the vermin with the insecticide, and that's the same way that he viewed Lawnmower Man, right? Because he was stupid. He was only as good as an insect and only good as a servant to maintain the church, so that he could continue to be pious within his own house and not be concerned with the day-to-day drudgery and the suffering, right? Because it was, in order to be holy is to escape the suffering. That's the mentality, and it's quite demented, and you know, and again, so again, a marquis is ranking higher than a duke. And then she breaks free. Justine breaks free of slavery multiple times, and she looks like she even escapes a murder attempt by another whore, you know, by a blonde whore, and then she gets taken in, as we just saw at the end, by omnipotent nobility. But the promise of a better life is always what's used to enslave people even further, especially after the ingestion and the usage of so many heavy drugs and pharmaceuticals and mood stabilizing chemicals and experimentations with nootropics and other performance enhancing concoctions, whatever, these shots in the arm, the vitamin mix that through the IV, the snake oil and so on and so forth, all of these mad world scams that white collar people of particular religious affiliations. Okay, I'm not gonna single anybody out here for that. I don't need another frickin' YouTube bullshit or Facebook fucking flag here. I think it's just hilarious. Okay, the fact that me, a Boy Scout and a disciplined person, is swearing his fucking mouth off and making jokes about this really touchy subject and dealing with his own shit at the same time. Because comedy is therapy, right? If we're not allowed to express ourselves, I don't want to link the windows right now. Thank you very much. If we're not allowed to express ourselves, this is the point of Patrice O'Neill, is that he was offensive on purpose. Because there's a point of which a tip over in which being threatening becomes hilarious, because it's just so melodramatic that you can't take the person seriously, and then you get caught into this typecasting, right? These archetypes and these tropes, and then this is the problem that happened within the past 20 years, is that gay people got into positions of power through accumulation of momentum, and they were allowed to come out and be free, instead of keeping their weirdness and keep your shit under wraps, right? Because here's the thing: is that why do we get dressed? Why pourquoi la raison des vêtements fancy, right? Why the complicated dress? Why the fanciness? Why the status? But it's not only status, but it's to separate ourselves from the natural world and to be closer to godliness, because we remove the sexual and the corporal and the hedonistic, right? Because it takes effort to put the clothes on, and it takes even more effort to take the clothes off, and you need another person to do it in a lot of cases. And then this is like the bindings and the reasons for the bindings and for the corsets and stuff like that is because it was not enslavement of women. It was a reminder of Puritan, Protestant, religious values. There's two sides to every story here, and this is why I'm so fucking angry. The fact that I have to jump through so many hoops, and then I'm like okay, so yeah, maybe we choose our own prisons, and then so I get, and just like I'm thinking about this in my own life, because I know performers out there, you guys out there watching this in Hollywood, that there's people out there that just don't know when to stop fucking with your life. They just don't know when to stop fucking with your life, because they want to turn you into a whore, and they want to make money off you for the rest of your life. And there's a point at which the joke becomes real, and you have to do something about it. Otherwise, it just keeps on happening. This is the attitude of certain religious, religious affiliations and identities. And these people, they centralize their entire personhood around their belief structure or their sexuality, and then combine the two together, and you get the perfect storm. Dicky Twisters, right? Except everybody's freaking high on amphetamines and Prozac and freaking Viagra, and it's about, okay, it's all of a sudden it's not just sword fighting, it's dodge the freaking missile. Disgusting. They didn't really get into the hedonistic aspects of Marquis de Sade's 100 Days of Sodom, right? Well, I'll get to that at some point, because sodomy is for the bottom. But these, again, the reason these whores, they go, okay, so they must be enjoying it, right? Because the John only sees so much of what's going on here, and they go in, and even because it's not just female whores, okay? Because in this, Justine is mistaken for a young boy, because young boys would wear their hair long, right? Having long hair was seen to be powerful. right? This is a bit of anthropology here for the era of like the 17th, 18th, even the 1600s. The difference between the lower people and the noblemen, right? The different tiers of society, the hierarchies. The further away you were from the dirt, the higher. Again, it's the whole Monty Python thing. Hey, that's the king. How do you know that's the king? He ain't got shit all over. And oops, sorry. I didn't mean to give you a pee-pee slap there. But nonetheless, it's like, it's depraved because there's the lust, and then there's even the presentation, a presentation and expulsion thereafter by a brotherhood, bros before hoes, right? And their philosophy in which Salafism or even Stoicism, which is gay, it's gay. Stoicism is gay. There's some things that, again, I'm not saying this out of prejudice. I'm saying this out of factual nature, right? And this is why, again, circling around back to censorship. If we can't talk about this stuff, then we deserve what we get. And what we'll get is a theocracy. And then all of a sudden we'll have genocide immediately after. And that's a problem, right? Because it's a cleansing. It's a cleansing. We got to get rid of these people that don't support God's creatures as they are. We don't want to interfere with them. We want to facilitate them having better sex. We want them to have pleasure. We want them to experience orgasms and to see God, to see stars, and to see the sun and moon, so on and so on. But then you have, again, but these people dope themselves up. They dope themselves, and then as they were with the opium dens in that era, numbed, Novocaine, even for the asshole. I'm not shitting you. It is people do some very strange things behind closed doors, and that's why Pierre Trudeau was so interested in saying, or so emphatic and enthusiastic about saying, okay, you guys can go do your stuff over there. Don't bring it into the foreground, and don't poison the youth with your bullshit, because otherwise we're gonna have a problem on our hands. And then it evolved and snowballed into this, post-AIDS, and then these acts of revenge because of stonewalling, the brownstones, and the new pornography, the pornography nouveau, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because then these counter actions and reactions of external actors actually trying to destabilize North American culture during the Sandbox Wars, and even during the Vietnam War, because we've talked about this within the history of propaganda, about the conception, implementation, and engineering behind a gay bomb. But a gay bomb can be. How do you turn people gay? Well, you got to get rid of their hormones, right? And so if you do it through environmental contamination, say with DDT, PTFE, Teflons, and these plastics that emulate estrogen, right, or phytoestrogens, where they make, and then even I looked in the Londoner today, and the women were celebrating that we're going to give them government support for birth control. But what they don't talk about is that there's a limitation to the potency, because after a while your body stops producing any of the chemicals because it's dependent upon the birth control, and then when you're off of the birth control, you can't have any kids. You've been made sterile because you wanted to. It's like this is sick punishment, right? You wanted to be a whore. You wanted to ignore your female nature. So now you're going to be a man, and you're not going to be able to have kids. So you get what you deserve. That's the attitude, right? It's just like, why do we torture stupid people so much? It's like, and then even further, it's the agony of the arrogance that is demonstrated by the aristocracy and these people that are higher up, and they're so far removed, right? We're talking about malicious billionaires that are so far removed from the everyday life, they don't even know the difference between their fucking dick and their asshole, quite frankly, right? And again, this is one of the reasons for war, is when we continue to exploit women instead of flirting with our wives because our wives are playing power games, and they're trying to poison us with glyphosate or with propylene glycol in the wine, because that happens too. That's actually I knew about that because of you know, the 100 Ways to Die, right? And there's no one far more devious in the world than a woman addicted to drugs. And there's no greater drug than power. So, you know, this is why I mock pornography and these e-thoughts, and then that's why P.J. Watson is right about it. We need to mock these people. We need to mock homosexuality and religiosity, right? This is why we can't trust Islam as Christians or as Jews, quite frankly, because the far more emphatic and enthusiastic and zealous Islamists will not take any kind of mockery against the Prophet Muhammad. But if the thing is that if they themselves within the culture being influenced by their own movies and so on and so forth, and having jokes and signals just like we have, they also having learned from the CIA and Hollywood, right? Because Hollywood had what? They had a production studio, right? That's owned by what's his face, the Mars Volta guy, right? The millions and millions of replicants, right? That was talked about by Robert Seffer. This stuff is real. It's real, right? It just doesn't go away because we turn off the television screen, right? And this is why why it's so important to have media literacy, as I'm demonstrating right here, and why we teach our children to be performers is so that they understand the means of exploitation, and they have an opportunity within a safe environment to learn about boundaries, right? And so that they can make mistakes, and that the mistakes will not follow them for the rest of their fucking lives. We can't judge people for making mistakes just because they won't listen or because they have disabilities. And that's a confrontation of older people not being very smart because they didn't have the same access to information. So I forgive the older generations, but again, the arrogance is still there because they're losing their power base as it is right now in 2024. Because as it was, millennials are now in the first time in history outnumbered the population of our parents and even our older siblings of the Gen Xers. And anyone in between, because we keep specifying things into obscurity. We want to play this large, everything all at once, interdimensional, multiversal play on the stage of life, and then some people are just so sick and twisted because they're psychotic and because they're seeking revenge that they end up employing an endgame scenario, being inspired by the art, right? Because art imitates life imitates art, and they started making art to torture instead of to entertain and for love, right? Art for art's sake, and I say that because you know what, my aunt Nancy Mayer, okay, the same last name as Metro Goldwyn Mayer, right? And she married into the Mayer family, John Mayer. Funny enough, right? And if I'm correct, we went to the Legion, and after his funeral, and after we were at the retirement home, that is exactly the reason why my life and my livelihood has been threatened, is because of my family, again, through the propaganda, because I can see parallels, I'm targeted, but, there's artistic liberties and so on and so forth. And having been around so many other creative people, the 6 degrees of separation, I have a director friends. I have people that I talk to that are on the radio at Western, You know, there's people that make music, abstract art, and all that other stuff. You know, it's not like London is a stranger to creativity. But the problem is that the scales of balance, again, especially now, this pivotal moment with the war in Israel and the war in the Ukraine, these battles for resources and for prosperity, and because we don't want certain people to have anything to do with controlling the rest of society. And that's the same thing as it is with Justine, because again, what's the control mechanisms, or what are the sources of conflict? Who gets to have the power? Who gets to have the resources? Who gets to have the pussy? Who gets to have the drugs? Who gets to have the territory? You know, these root causes that you know, they cause the infection, and then we have to go for unnecessary dental surgeries. You know, it's amazing the scams that are run, because people don't want to work. They don't want to work. They don't want to do physical labor. It's amazing. And, you know, it's a happiness in your life and your household is the best thing. You must seek out happiness in your household, because it will give you many children and a good life. Well, you won't have to exercise. You get your children to do your work for you. And tu comprends? You know, you make them into performers for us. Someone else always has a plan for you. Oh, it's God's plan. And again, all of these messages in the language, that is also propaganda. That's and the gaslighting and so on and so forth. That leads further exploitation, and then like people again, because the 100 Days of Sodom is about domination. It's about domination. It always has been about domination and about humiliation, right? And there's these rituals again with the blood rituals and whatever else that are also about humiliation and domination through emotional exploitation. Which is we're talking about even more references to the Stanford prison experiment, and then also Stockholm syndrome because of trauma bonding. And here's the thing: when someone has been through so much trauma, they don't know what a good thing is when it slaps them in the face. Because they don't feel like they deserve it. Because you're just so used to being used. And that's a continuous conflict within humanity and North American society, in this pursuit of ultimate profit and power. And you know, again, because this all correlates. It all correlates, right? One big snake eating its own tail. It's really unfortunate that we don't listen to the most intelligent of us. Instead, we freeze them out. Or we make them spend 40 years in the desert. Or 7 years in Tibet. Or 7 years as a slave. We think we know what's good for our children, and we think we know what's good for lower classes when we reach a position of power and of privilege, but we don't. No, I will not go quietly into that good night. The rage at the horror of the things that men that don't get their hands dirty and will never get their hands dirty due to people that don't have any money or don't have the intelligence and because they were never taught how to do certain things. You know, the internet, just like the gun and just like the nuke, is a great equalizer. It is one of the greatest things that humanity has ever made. One of the greatest. But it don't mean shit if we keep treating each other like pieces of shit. Once you're at the top of the mountain, all you want to do is come back down again. And it's just not a hard lesson to learn. It's not a lesson that I needed to learn the hard way. And you shouldn't have to learn it the hard way either. But the stubbornness, because again, some people just don't want to listen. They don't want to foster. They're so afraid and so paralyzed by intelligence, and they in awe, in just, you know, paralysis of watching this machine absolutely destroy everything that they ever loved, that they ever cared for and they cherished, because they weren't the things that they should love or cherish to begin with. And that's the trap of materialism, and then the trap of power and lust and greed and gluttony, which is emblematic of you know, again, European society in like the 19th century. That's why Russia and Peter the Great was so motivated to bring Russia out of poverty, because Russia has always been an agrarian and very sparse, very brutal existence. You know, a cutthroat, absolutely. And we try to remove ourselves from the violence within North American society and say, look at me. I don't get my hands dirty. You see, I wear gloves, white gloves. Oops. Oh, I wasn't supposed to touch that whore. Oh, we'll have to kill her now. What a shame, what a shame. What a shame. And that there is the problem, is not having respect for life. And then this idea that other people don't want to participate. The reason why other people don't want to, most people don't want to participate within society is because of the actions of the ignorant, and because of the righteous, and because of the vengeful. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. But since I'm a representative of God under the crown, I shall do as I please. Off with her head. Off with hers too. Make sure she has the child first before she's beheaded. Don't take me seriously, okay? I'm just trying to act this out. Because, you know, I don't want my words to be misinterpreted and then used against me, because this is super connection, right? And there's people out there that have far more money than brains out there. And they do too many drugs. And they don't know how to stop. If you want to stop, you got to do the dopamine detox. You gotta write your own story. You gotta go back to where you started before the propaganda. But the propaganda has always existed, and the propaganda will always exist because we're always trying to one up other cultures, or other cultures are trying to tear the most intelligent of us down because we adapted more abstract ideas, and then we use that, say, with engineering and so forth, and calculus. Remember, if I remember correctly, calculus was invented by Benjamin Franklin, but the claim to math is Arabic and Indian, or the claim to design and art is Italian, or the claim to philosophy, morality, ethics, and so on and so forth is Greek, and then the claim to democracy is French, and then the claim to world domination is British. And Northern European, you know, the avant-garde into the heart of darkness. I, sir, the knights, the Green Knights, will triumph over evil, and I'll get the woman too. Why? Because God says so. She got some gas in it. Anyways, that's my review for Justine. It's an okay movie for production values. And just like, you know, City of the Dead, City of the Dead was a bit choppy. But considering the era and considering what they had to do in order to put that on screen, bravo. You know? This is why I like movies from older generations, because that was their main entertainment. And movies now, arguably, are just produced for content, just like a lot of the stuff here on YouTube or elsewhere. Culture jamming is a thing. You know, other cultures use these services and fill them with bullshit, clickbait, and so on and so forth for scams and electronic warfare. But you know what? Facing this propaganda is spiritual warfare, and we have to resist. We have to stand up, because it's our time to shine. You know, as young people. So that's our task and purpose, friends. If you want, or if we're going to call each other friends. Anyways, my phone's at 5%. Thanks for watching this review of Justine, and then the connection I'm making to the history of propaganda. Because propaganda doesn't change.